everyone. I am Sanjam Sachdeva and you are listening to the podcast called which is here to inspire you.
So for today's podcast, we have a very special guest with us, Shamik. He's doing his PhD in computer science from UC Lugano, Switzerland. In this current trending topic of studying abroad, wherein every student is looking forward to answers where to study, what to study, and India being currently second to China in taking the enrollment for students across the globe, we welcome him to share his insights on what are the compelling reasons Indian students want to pursue a higher education in foreign universities. So let us welcome Shamik on the podcast and have an insightful discussion with him. Hi, dear. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the warm introduction.
Yeah, it's a pleasure
I'm
to have
honored to
you.
be, equally honored to be here, part of this discussion.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's a very vast topic to begin with. So, I will roughly go over the main topics that relate to this, and then we could do an in-depth analysis on each of it as it flows.
Right.
So, first thing is, compelling reason for students to go into foreign universities. The main point I'd like to make is it shouldn't be compelling. It should be coming out of freedom, and it should be totally based on an informed decision that
Right.
people should go out, and not simply because XYZ or so and so has gone. That's why even I have to go. It should be out of a genuine, authentic interest, and that interest shows up in each and every aspect of the process that goes into finally ending up at a foreign university.
Right.
And by process, I mean the whole figuring out which university, what stream, what professor, what area should I go to, the west, east, south, north. All of these are some aspects that go into the process of figuring out how to end up at a foreign university. And if the intention and the authenticity is clean, everything would just flow on its own. But there are certain guidelines from people who have trodden the path which are useful into figuring out how to proceed on this path. Like, many of us have a very strong desire, ambition, but the direction is not clear how to invest the energy that we have and get the best out of the choices of universities at hand. So that's the groundwork I'd lay for today's discussion.
Right. That's a very well put foundation for the discussion. You did your graduation from IIT Guwahati, if that's right.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So when you did your graduation, what factors did you consider for choosing doing a master's from international university rather than doing some job in India or master's from India? What were the factors that you considered that doing masters outside India or in some foreign university would be a good decision for you?
Yeah, that's a very, very nice question, actually, because right from my childhood, all that was put into my head was masters abroad, and I never thought or even gave a good thought about why somebody should undertake it or why someone shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, IITs was also like the big thing, so it all happened naturally that I ended up at one of the IITs without much thought again. Like, just
Right.
went through school and then I saw myself there. The first real I would say revelation came at the end of the internship. I think it was in my third year, and I think right from first year there was this buzz around, oh, you should get a foreign internship or at a big FMCG in India, and like make some money or something like that.
Right.
Uh, Very unexpectedly, I was in Australia for my third year internship, and that was a research internship, so to say. There are like two broad things: research and industrial internships in undergrad, and I did my research internship. It was about 8 weeks. It was a wonderful experience to visit a foreign land. I think this was in 2014 summer, 7 years ago. It was a very nice experience, I would say.
Right.
New people, new food culture, and all that. But the thing is, I didn't like the work culture or the workflow in Australia at that time. It was work hard and party hard, and for interns, it was the story that work harder, party lesser. That did not bode well with me.
Yeah.
I
Right.
would see everybody else partying and
Interesting.
working. Yeah, essentially the point was uh, get I did not like the vibe that was along with it. There was a lot of money, but I saw the lives of PhD students over there, and I didn't like it. For the record, I was in the western part of Australia in Perth.
Yeah.
The story could be entirely different on the eastern coast. So just
Right.
putting things into perspective.
Right.
And that's when I decided if I should definitely do something, but not here.
Okay.
So the process of elimination had begun very
Okay.
soon. And yeah, come placements. And by the time we are into third, fourth year, we know like uh, we did not gather a lot of like knowledge or wisdom through these 3 4 years. Everything seemed shallow, and somehow all the companies were just coming and hiring us for nothing. Mostly, I should say, it was always the promise of future, or it was our attitude and our history that was like getting us all these positions. Of course, we did well in our interviews and all, but that
Right.
didn't really correlate with what kind kind of courses and other things that we did in these 4 years. So the innate desire to like really learn something, go to the depth of the subject matter, and all of that was there.
Hmm.
So I'm speaking from that point of view, of that inner fire to like really know the subject
Hmm.
of like whatever you're interested in. For me, it was mostly algorithms, computer science, and I think machine learning was at that time in its inception, or at least it was relatively newer field at that time.
Hmm.
And having done a couple of courses, I decided, yeah, this is like a good thing. I should probably learn more about these, and I naturally gave my GRE and other things. And uh, in all this process, the guidance of people who have already trodden the path, seniors, they used to conduct like uh, information sessions on how to like prepare for GRE
Right.
and all these other exams.
Hmm.
But essentially, I would say it's a lifetime of preparation. It's not like a 1 month or a 2 month thing. It's like all the books that you've read from your childhood, or all the stories, movies, soaps that you've watched. All of that kicks in somehow in the exam.
Right.
For
Interesting
me, at
perspective.
least, yeah, I didn't know like which part would help me in the exam. So I'm like a kind of guy who just goes along with the flow, and many things helped me. Some of which I've already just mentioned, like movies, soaps, and all these things. And eventually, it's the enthusiasm, ambition, and energy.
Enthusiasm, ambition, and energy are the three things that you're mentioning.
Yes, and these three things are also evaluated when applications are picked up by the admissions office in these universities.
Right.
I've I've also had the privilege of being part of the panels that actually select these applications, and so coming from the other side also, it's very obvious that people do not have the experience that they need to conduct like good quality research.
Right.
So the applications are only evaluated on mostly energy, enthusiasm, and ambition.
That's a good takeaway from here. So with this, you just said a very beautiful point that it gives a very promising future. With this promising future, there also comes a cost that people have to take in studying abroad. So what is the cost structure of investment when somebody thinks of studying abroad, and what are the criteria if somebody wants to avail any kind of scholarships?
Yeah, generally I would say that first semester might be hard to get a scholarship, but you shouldn't lose heart if first semester we don't get scholarships. But typically it's relatively easy to get funding, and without funding for like 3 or 4 semesters, I would recommend against. This is modulo the amount of desire the person has. If the desire and ambition is too much, yes, you can go by funding yourself completely with your family funds or your savings, or like there are different ways people fund. Some people work for like 3 or 4 years, save enough money, and then go. But
Right.
I'll tell you a few examples in which funding was obtained by me and some of our friends.
Yes.
So all it takes is like you speak good English, communicate well with the admissions office, and just ask, hey, are there any funding opportunities? And if there are, like you would really get, and it's like a handsome sum. You get like 15 16
Right.
grand tuition waived off, and on top of that you get at least like another 22 grand per year, which is almost good 37 40 grand funding per year. And all it takes is to just ask nicely, just go out and ask.
That's a very well put
Get
one. Yes.
clear your exams properly. I mean, if you have to give IELTS, IELTS, I think that's how it's called. Yeah,
Files.
that and
Yeah.
TOEFL. just prepare properly, score decently, 110 or 109 or whatever you need, clear all the cutoffs, and be open, explore options, go out and ask. If you just like this was our tendency. We just went and we sat there like ducks waiting for the funding to come to us. It doesn't happen like that. You should just go out and ask, apply. There are lots of scholarships, TA positions, RA positions, and it's all that initiative and energy that matters. If people see that spark in you, how could they deny you? That's the question. It's not like how could you get, how could they deny you funding?
Yes. You're giving an easy road to the students who are listening to
Yeah.
this. That's interesting one.
Sorry to
Great.
interject, but another point I'd like to add is
Yes.
most often we strike off our own application like, yeah, I'm not good enough. I don't know how to handle the situation. So it's best to just be a little extrovert, go out, put all your energy out and see what happens.
Oh, that's a very interesting point. Put your energy out and see what's the possible thing for
Yeah.
you. Very interesting one. So with that exploration thing, we have seen Indian education system has also grown with the years coming by. So with the advanced education system in India, why should one choose to study abroad, and what has been your personal experience in your journey since you have taken your master's in USA and doing your PhD in Europe, Switzerland? What are your experiences in that system?
Yeah, the culture is quite different in Europe and US and India, of course, and of course
Yeah.
the Eastern countries.
Yeah.
So I'd like to begin with at least when we were in our undergrad, like from 2011 to 15, the kind of research output was primarily from TIFR, IISc, and all the institutes with the pure sciences. And of course, there was a lot of output even from the IITs and other very good universities in the other parts of India. But the whole lifestyle and the working culture was the big thing. Like, if we can do the same research in India and abroad, then why not do abroad? That was the question for us. Like,
Okay.
and that was the only thing, like good fresh air, water, food, clean food, chemically less polluted food. These were all the things. But now India is like doing very well in organic farming and all these other renewable energy things. So I'd say
Right.
that now it's a little harder to decide to leave India, but back in the day it was a little more enticing to explore cleaner territories once. By cleaner I only mean air, water, and food, which was the important factor for us. And
Yeah, it was a popular choice then.
yeah, like the amount of ppm pollutants in the air and so city breaching all possible inhabitation limits, all these things like kind of made us explore these territories outside and see, okay, what is this big thing about like working outside India. And it was a really enriching experience. You meet a lot of diverse people, their perspectives, the kind of food and the kind of lifestyle they lead. You pick up all the good things from them, and it sort of makes you like an alpha, or the strongest or the best version of yourself, or at least puts you on that path.
Yeah, so it's amalgamation of the best of both
Yeah,
worlds.
like the productivity of the West and the values of the East. Like, let's say that.
That's very
Yeah.
well put. Very well put thought. Right. So with the such good thoughts coming in the podcast, I would like to ask that what is a generic process to apply? Like somebody who wants to start afresh, what are the steps that they should take? Just imagine a person who is just going to start applying for the foreign universities. So what should be taken care of while submitting an application? And there's a very popular term called statement of purpose. So what are your intakes? What should be done and what should not be done while applying for foreign universities?
Yeah, this is a pretty loaded question, so I'll try to unpack it in levels. Firstly, it's always easier to start early because the amount of average energy to invest is moderate and it can be achieved easily. The later you start, the more energy you have to put in. It's a little harder, but it's preference of style, how you want to do it. Some people don't like to get things done easily. They want challenges, do it the harder way. So you can postpone if you're of that type. But given a good point to start is at least somewhere in the second or third year is good enough, or even the fourth year of your undergrad. But this is one big phase. The other phase is after you graduate and like some of my friends, they did work for 3 or 4 years and then they had the inclination to do. So that's the second phase where most people start. But the desire or the ambition should be from a long, long time before, at least from what I perceive. Like if you garner this desire right from your childhood, things sort of fall into place very easily. But that thing aside, I'll go into the two phases that I described. So if you are in the phase one, which is at some point in the undergrad, it's easy to, give out your GRE and other exams in the first or second year when there's not much load from your courses and other, things like placements, internships, and all of that. Like
Right.
you can easily score very high points if you focus your entire first year summer or second year summer on these kind of exams. And
Mm-hmm.
regarding the second phase, the job phase is much harder because you have to like do your job in the day and then come back study at night. But I have known people who have done that too. It's again a preference how you want to do things. And once again, statement of purpose and a lot of other things go into finishing these applications, like talking to professors, getting your letters of recommendation and all those kind of things, getting transcripts, packing all of that and sending. Of course, this was the system when I was applying. Maybe things are changing very fast because of the
Yeah.
situation of the world. Uh,
Right.
yeah, essentially, the theme is the same. How much time you have left and how much energy you have left. Based on that, you have to optimize. Stress
Mm-hmm.
and mistakes creep in when there's too little time, too little energy, but the desire is too much to, you want to get the best of the universities, but like 3 4 years, nothing much has been done. Like, then situation is a little hard. But if you've been like in the good books for 3 or 4 years of your undergrad, or maybe even 2 years is enough, then it's relatively easier to get like good letters of recommendation and all of that.
Right.
uh,
Great.
yeah, I want to end with another thing. Like this is still about phase one, but I've known exceptional people from my own batch. Like they were
Yeah.
so sure of getting admitted into good universities that they didn't even apply. They waited, they worked for two years, and then they took all of their job experience and undergrad experience, and then they landed at very good positions in the US and other countries. So I can pick and pinpoint success stories for any combination of energy, time, and commitment, desire, ambition, all of that. The important point is to identify where you lie on the spectrum and honestly, with authenticity, accept it and take the action that springs out of your true intention. This
Okay.
has to be done. Otherwise, if we delude ourselves into thinking, oh, I'm more or less like that kind of person, I can also pull it off. Sorry, but sometimes it doesn't end well. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have to like deal with the consequences that come out of such like not so thought out
All
decisions.
right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very well put one. And with this, there comes in a very interesting question with the times changing of the
Yeah.
world. In this COVID times, when we have all the situational changes, what are your suggestions to people who are applying afresh? How are universities responding to the fresh applications? Any kind of changes that are there in the processes? And what are the suggestions for that?
It's it's still premature to like predict what could be the eventual point where universities converge to with regard to how they process applications. But as a currently funding is a little tight, but maybe that'll change very soon, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
universities will be wiped out. Like I really don't know, with online learning taking up or picking up speed so rapidly, it's very possible that if a person can learn on his own with the resources available online, it would be the best skill that could that anyone could have in the coming years. But the point,
Right.
yeah, sorry, the important thing is there's an infinite amount of knowledge available, but the right direction and guidance, that would also become the key. Like how should I know what to pick up and learn, the right level for me to learn? And this is what all these online courses are offering now, and most of the universities are putting out their degrees, or the so they have online masters and other things coming up now. So maybe online learning would become the future, and that could be the case even for business schools and other like MBAs and not just masters. A lot of my friends who got into like Columbia and other big B schools, they have
Right.
deferred their admissions for at least 3 4 semesters now, and because it's like so much expense to go there, and they can pick up the
Right.
same amount of skill with
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 1% of the investment, yeah,
Less.
then
Right.
it wouldn't make sense to like go and take up all.
Invest
Yeah.
that heavy and take that. Right. That's a well put thought. Another thing I would like to ask that in this time wherein people are subject to understand that, wherein having a thought that understanding knowledge versus taking education are two different aspects. So, how do you conclude the note that having education and having a knowledge of subject are two different things? If somebody wants to invest in that thought,
Okay. So you mean which investment should take priority? Investing in education or
yes,
okay.
yes,
It's another really good question for which I don't have like a answer, but I'll present my own thoughts on this.
yeah,
Uh, what we have is courses, curriculums, and all these kind of things. It doesn't matter so much how different the content is from university to university or course to course. It is the way in
mm-hmm.
which we do the course. That's what ramps up brownie points for that education thing, the real education. It's how you go through a course. That's what creates a real impact in you, and that real impact is what remains with you even after years. So if
Right,
you invest properly in each course, if you give your 100%, honestly, sincerely give respect to all the things that are happening in the course, in your learning experience, you would take away much more than what even the course designers would have intended to offer. So
hmm.
that's how I see it. It could be entirely different, but the way in which you fly through these different courses and how you do your assignments, are you honestly doing your assignments, or you know at the tip of your hands,
How involved you
yeah, you
are.
could get the answer
Yeah,
online, but it's the internal churning that happens when you go through that churning is what
mm-hmm.
grinds, and when we churn buttermilk, all the butter comes up. That kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing happens inside you, and so
Great.
that's what real education is for me, and that stays with you forever. Even if you forget the course after 10 years, you go and look back at the content, and within minutes or hours you can pick up everything. It'll be like you're back in the college and you're in the classroom sitting and listening to that lecture. It would literally be like that
Yes.
in some cases.
Right. Yes. So having a impact of having a great insight from the education and knowledge section, you give a very insightful thought on how studying in different universities look like, how easy could be your process of getting scholarships, taking off the realm of COVID times, and giving insightful things to the podcast. So thank you so much, Shamik, for the podcast. We're really delighted to have a talk with you. Any concluding note that you would like to give?
Yeah, concluding note would be that it matters how you do something. It doesn't matter where you do it, if you do it the right way. But
Yeah,
if doing it in a
that's
different place makes you do it the right way, then yeah, please go and do it in that different place and just do it the right way. That's the important thing.
yeah, that's a very, very well thought and very well put thought again. So thank you so much, dear, for having this conversation. And many would be inspired by your journey of taking multiple courses from different parts of the world and coming to this podcast to inspire others. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you so much for having me.
Stay tuned with the podcast, and we launch every Monday a new story to keep you inspired. Happy listening, Podcast Chords.